Within a week of students returning to school in the Tennessee Valley, school districts have experienced both network and power outages. Our Kenesha Dees heard from Huntsville City Schools officials about how they're preparing to keep students and teachers connected amid these technical issues.
I'm here at Morris Middle School, where Huntsville City School leaders address their backup plan in case of major power and network-wide outages.
Last night, as you know, there was a power outage across Huntsville. While that did not impact students' ability to access the learning platforms at home, it did impact some teachers and their ability to get on Wi-Fi.
Teachers could go home to resume online learning and power was restored. However, another large power outage happened this morning that lasted until 2. School leaders say 6 campuses in the northern and western parts of the city were impacted. As for more access to online engagement, school leaders say Zoom is something the district plans to implement.
And one piece of feedback we heard from teachers is they've been using Zoom a lot throughout the summer. Zoom is what they're familiar with, Zoom's what they're comfortable with, and ultimately they asked if we as a district could consider returning to Zoom.
However, Zoom also experienced an outage today. Leaders say the school district has a backup.
In the event one of those platforms crashes, fortunately we have a couple of alternatives in place, whether it's Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and even just traditional email.
There was an outage last week with Schoology, the district's online learning platform. Morris Middle School Principal William King says it will take time to get used to these different systems and the problems that can happen.
I would say to the parents that it's going to get better. Each day that we go through this, we're learning more, and you know, when you learn a new platform, whatever it is, it takes a little time to ramp up.
And the principal here at Morris Middle School says although thousands were affected by the power outage today, his school was not affected. Putting the Valley first, Kenesha Dees, WZDX News.